so what I'm going to show you now is an example of some of the tracking that's being used commonly on the web. There's many different kinds. This is one that a lot of people know about, so I'm going to start with that. But at the same time, I'm going to show you about something that most people don't know about, and it's going to be absolutely shocking. Okay, so like before, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to load up these three sites, TMZ, Chicago Tribune, and the New York Times, and I'm going to show you behind the scenes some of these companies that are tracking you. And then we're going to plug Winston in, and we're going to see how that changes.
Great.
Okay, so I've already loaded them up. I did a hard refresh, and here we go. If you go on Chrome, you right-click, you go to Inspect, you're going to see this developer window down here. Now you can go to the Application tab, and let's take a look at cookies. So all these cookies were loaded on the page, so TMZ. So Bounce Exchange, BlueKai is a well-known tracking company, Hotjar, Amazon Ads, Google Syndication, AdNexus, OpenX.
Wait, so TMZ doesn't just have their own cookie; they've got other cookies on
Exactly,
the site too.
exactly. So if you think about what you see on TMZ, it's usually some photos, right, from Instagram. It might be a video from YouTube, and then it's a bunch of TMZ stuff. So if they weren't tracking, they were just, giving you a good website, you would see TMZ, YouTube, maybe Instagram. What you're seeing are all these cookies, and these represent data that's being implanted in your browser by third-party companies that you've never heard of. They're secretly spying on you, right? And the list just goes on and on and on. PubMatic, 33 Cross, Google, Kaseil, Rubicon. If you look up some of these companies, you'll see they're all advertisers and trackers.
Yeah, like BlueKai is like owned by Oracle, and they're a data exchange.
Right.
Sure.
Right. Okay, so these are known as third-party cookies.
Okay.
The browser companies say, hey, we're such good guys, we're going to protect your privacy, so we're going to let you delete those third-party cookies if you want. Aren't we great? Let me show you what's really happening behind the scenes, though. The good ad networks, let me say the skilled ad networks, which is most of them, they don't rely on third-party cookies anymore. They keep them in there because, heck, why not? It's free data. But they're actually relying on another technique, which is a lot more insidious. So, Rob, you mentioned TMZ with first-party cookies before. And first-party cookie means, all right, well, this is information that TMZ is putting on a computer in order to make the site work better. So as an example, maybe your native language is English, and TMZ will remember, okay, hey, it's English, it's not Spanish, so they remember you, and they say, okay, well, you want to see the English version of their website. So here's a question, though. All that aside, what are all these first-party cookies here on TMZ doing? And you can see this one was set by Google. This one was set by 33 Cross. This is advertising.com, who didn't even bother to use a first-party cookie, right? And all these companies here are hiding their third-party tracking cookies right next to TMZ's first-party cookies. And you can see the TMZ cookies like, okay, here are a couple settings, right, that they're using. I don't know what those are for, but they're clearly not to track you. They're to give you a better experience.
Wait, so that's inside of
a first-party cookie? Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So here's a first-party cookie. We click on that, and now we're seeing all the ZertNet. So this is what I call, the human shield strategy. It's kind of like a terrorist. They have women and children, or they hole up in hospitals. That's what these advertisers are doing. They're hiding, they're tracking cookie and scripts inside of the first-party stuff, so you can't touch it. And if you try to touch it, then you're going to break the site and delete all your settings. You won't be able to log in, and other things happen.
I had no idea.
Right. This is one of the techniques advertisers use to track you. So let's see this in action on a couple other sites. All right. Same thing. The Chicago Tribune. If we were following along with the speed test, you know that, well, this thing is still loading. All right, here we go. So we're loading. We're just going to ignore that. We're going to go over here to cookies for the Tribune, and lo and behold, we have the same thing. Not as many cookies as are on TMZ, but how many is too many? 1, 2. This is a lot of third-party, and you can see here are some first-party cookies which are being hidden. So Ad Server, Everest Tech, OpenX, and so on. Even Yahoo. Why does Yahoo have a cookie in the Chicago Tribune? It's because, well, They want to know, I went to TMZ and I went to the Chicago Tribune. What am I looking at? How can they get inside my head to sell me something? Let's go to New York Times. Let's do the same thing. I'll expand that a little. We go to cookies. Okay. And here, now you can see the page is loading in the background. And here come the cookies, right? So add nexus, double click, Facebook. Facebook knows I'm the New York Times. A lot of people don't know that Google has about 75% reach on the internet. Facebook has between 50 and 65%. They're right behind them. So no matter where you go on the internet, you're being tracked most likely by one of these two companies. And that's how they figure out, okay, what you're thinking and what to show you.
This might be a dumb question, but what if you don't have a Facebook account?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They still know that you're there and they still know a lot about you. They may not know your name, right? But chances are, by tagging your photos, by spying on your cell phone and so on, they pretty much know everything about you anyway, because Facebook's been grabbing your contacts and your emails and other things over the years.
Okay.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if you have an account or not. They know about you. Again, same thing here on the New York Times. I clicked on the New York Times here, and we see first-party cookies. And here's Facebook, Google. Scorecard Research is this company is actually owned by ComScore, and what they do is they produce ratings. So when you're using a smart TV or watching, various, streaming, they record what you're watching. So you'll see, if you have a Winston device, you'll see that load up in the background. Well, they're also tagging websites because they want to know, okay, if you're watching this, what websites are you going to?
Yeah.
You mentioned the TVs just now, and before we talked about cell phones, this would work on a router in a home. They'd be protecting all of those devices. That's
Every
right.
device you own, yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Every device. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug Winston in. Okay, so I've plugged Winston in. Now I'm going to go back to TMZ.com, and we're going to refresh it. I'm going to do a hard refresh because I want Winston to clear out all this garbage that they've loaded. All right. Okay, so you see TMZ is loading pretty fast, not too bad. And we can go back here. It's still loading the background. It's a pretty slow site. It's probably going to take 15 to 20 seconds to load this even with Winston, right? Okay, so 19.7 seconds. Those are all the cookies I loaded.
Wow.
They're all gone. So TMZ and YouTube, right? Third-party cookies are automatically blocked on all your devices. But most of the cookies that are being used are also going to be monitored. So you see the first-party cookies, almost all of them are gone.
They're all TMZ now.
Almost
Which
all
makes
of them.
sense. Yep.
Almost all of them. So let me tell you what's happening here. Deleting first-party cookies is really hard because if you delete them, you tend to break sites, right?
Yeah.
Well, Winston has an artificial intelligence system built into it, and it analyzes every single cookie that goes in or out, and it makes a decision that says, well, if I think that this is, if I'm really confident this cookie is being used to track you in a nefarious manner, I'm just going to block it, like it did almost all of them here. And if it's kind of sure, but not 100% sure, then what Winston does is it tries to make sure the site remains functional, and it just limits how much damage that cookie can do. So as an example, if you go to TMZ, you're going to get a 5-year YouTube cookie. They're going to track you for the next 5 years and identify who you are. And they want to know all the videos you watch during that time period. What Winston does, it'll take these cookies, these tracking cookies, and it'll limit them to 24 hours or maybe even 30 minutes.
Wow.
Right? So you'll still get the
I did
cookie,
not know
the
that.
site will still work,
Yeah.
but then boom, 30 minutes later or a day later, you're a different person. They can't track
Yeah.
you.
No tracking, but you
Right.
get the same utility now.
So you see all those cookies are gone. Let's go to the Chicago Tribune. You saw some of those cookies were still in there. And actually, because I plugged Winston in, you saw some of them get cleared out. Winston works automatically, so as these pages run,
Mm-hmm.
what they do is they try to sneak the cookies in the back end. You saw those cookies being populated after the page was already loaded.
Yep.
What happens when you have Winston devices, they're actually hurting themselves now because every time they make a request, Winston's clearing out the cookies, right? So as you have a Winston device plugged in, your browser starts automatically cleaning itself.
Yeah.
Right.
They're drawing attention to it.
Yeah.
By
So
loading. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So most of the cookies are gone here. That's not a tracking cookie. That's streaming media. We have Digitrust. That's again a CDN. But most of them are gone. So you see most of these are all, they're all Chicago Tribune cookies now. So Winston was able to go in, figure out what those cookies were, and nuke them. Let's go to the New York Times. So a bunch of cookies here, add Nexus, double click, Facebook, BlueKai. We're going to do a hard refresh. And now when these scripts try to run, again, they're going to inadvertently delete themselves, out of your browser cache. Okay, so we have the New York Times, and it's loading. And you can see, doesn't look like any sign of cookies here. Boom, and they're all gone.
Wow.
That's really impressive.
So what's cool about this is I haven't installed any software on my computer. There's nothing. You saw as I just took this device here and I plugged it in. So when you put this on your network, you don't have to install any software. All the cookies on your smart TVs, your doorbells, your refrigerators, your cell phones, all this tracking goes away.
What does the New York Times look like now with all this?
That's a great question. It looks almost exactly the same, except now you don't see those ads.
So I
Right.
guess if you like white space,
Well,
yeah, that's
yeah.
pretty great.
actually,
great.
in this case, you really don't get white space.
Yeah.
You just get an incredible reading
Right.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a little white space here, right?
Yeah.
So this was an ad, right? There's probably an ad here.
Just looks a lot cleaner.
It's so much cleaner. It's so much faster. You can see how quickly this loads.
Yep.
And I'm going through this device. There's no latency at all.
Yeah. That's faster and cleaner.
Yeah, all the sites are faster and cleaner. If we go to Chicago Tribune and close it off, if you recall from our speed test, there was big ad up here, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it looks so much better.
There's some white
Is that-
space. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot. Like it's is it rearranging the site a little bit dynamically?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Depending on how the site's coded, you might see
Yeah.
different things. So here you see a big chunk of white space. If you go to other sites, you might see evidence that Winston has been blocking something, right? So sometimes if I go to YouTube, what I'll see here on the top, well, today we're not getting it. We got a really clear ad-free experience. So it didn't happen today. Sometimes you see a Winston blocked by Winston logo where they have like a really big overt ad. But here you didn't. So Winston, it tries to be in the background, your little helper,
Yeah.
and just not get in your way.
Great.
All right.
That's really cool.